attracting talent is really hard for everybody, right? And benefit packages are a big deal. You know,
Mhm.
it used to be that people would want free snacks, gym memberships, ping pong tables. But I heard now, and there's been a study out there that these Gen Zers, Lou, you're going to love this one. They want Ozempic in their benefit packages.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matthew, there are a few challenges that a small business owner and entrepreneur has to tackle that are more complex than healthcare insurance. And today we have the expert, Donovan Ryckis, CEO of Ethos Benefits. Donovan, thank you so much for joining us. And I personally thank you because I have no idea what's going on in the complex healthcare benefits world.
Yeah.
If you were a business owner starting out and you've got, let's call it a couple of dozen employees, where do you even begin to make heads or tails of the challenges?
Yeah, it's painful. It's usually expense number 2 or number 3 for any business. It increases every year, and generally the market and the people kind of representing, the solutions, we'll call them benefits brokers. That's typically how they're referred to, right? They're not bringing any good options. So it's just kind of this conversation where people are led to believe this is what it is, and you can do nothing to control the costs. And when that happens, that's when employers are led to just increase deductibles and basically risk transfer back to the employees to try and maintain some level of affordability. But there is a lot to do. It just starts with kind of understanding the fundamentals of how this gets put together.
And Donovan, help us understand those fundamentals, because from the outside looking in, it's the only industry that we know of where the premiums get higher, but the service gets worse.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's no correlation between, client geared help desks, or it's basically pay the premium, shut up, and this is it, and you're going to like it. So what is going on behind the scenes from a macroeconomic level that causes those triggers?
From a macro level, I think we need to understand that everybody downstream in the chain makes more money when the employer pays more money. From the broker to the hospital to the doctors to the pharmacy benefit managers to the pharmacies to the drug manufacturers. And there's also a disconnect because as a business owner, you don't understand what is kind of the benchmark for any cost, right? So like, what is the benchmark cost for that drug versus what I'm actually paying? So I think every American understands that whether we're talking about going into a hospital or going into a pharmacy, that there is not a fixed price for anything, right? That price is variable, not based off the person, not based off their condition, not based off the doctor. The price is variable by the insurance, by the payer, right? So that's the first thing we have to understand. And really what we need in this equation is we need consultants over brokers, which is kind of what led me down this path, because I realized, coming from securities, I was working with employers on 401ks, and the level of data and transparency and prospectus and disclosure of fees and all this kind of stuff, all that went away when I saw my first healthcare plan. It made no sense to me. And with just a little bit of understanding of like how these costs get inflated and what the actual benchmark is, we can start to know what we need to focus on, right? Like, are our drugs a problem? Are our hospital reimbursement prices that we're agreeing to the problem? And also the broker, right? Because typically this is a percentage sale. So if a company's premium goes up 10%, that usually makes the broker's compensation also go up 10% because they might be making anywhere from 4 to 7% of premium based off that case, right? So we got to kind of get some alignment both internally in the company and certainly with the person they're hiring to advise them through this kind of problem.
I'll draw the analogy in your industry with ours. Matt and I, on our day job, we run a small business lender called Shield Advisory Group. And when you
Mhm.
speak to small business owners, their first reaction is, well, I walked into my corner bank, big box USA, and I got declined because of blah, blah, blah. I didn't even know there were alternatives. I didn't know you guys existed, right? But then
Mhm.
when they start speaking to us, well, then we explain to them, well, there are several hundred lenders that like this space and have a diversity of product offerings. Where can a small business owner find you and your colleagues so that
Mhm.
they can also have those several hundred offerings when it comes to carrier and insurance pricing?
Yeah. So it starts with we'll call them brokers, and this will come up a bunch of times because it's really the beginning and almost the end of the problem because um, it's a funny thing. When a company hires a broker, they have no idea how much they're getting paid, for what reasons they're getting paid, when they might get paid more, what bonuses and incentives they are. So in order to start having a better conversation, that should really be kind of one of the first conversations is just say, like, explain to me your compensation. How does this relationship work? The common answer is like, don't worry, you're not paying me, right? The insurance company is paying me. Obviously, you can think of all kinds of conflicts of interest with a conversation like that, but clearly, if the compensation is in the product, like it's baked in to the cost of the product, right? So we need to understand how much that is, when it might be more, what's their bonus for this carrier versus that carrier. And instead of going percentage, we need to ask them to change it to a flat fee, which is going to be a per employee per month basis. That takes care of the healthcare inflation and them participating in the problem, right? And then that also opens them up to exploring solutions because now they're just trying to work for you and keep you as a client, right? So that's kind of the starting position is making sure you actually understand that relationship, you understand the cost, and then also what is their scope of work that they're doing for you for that cost. It is the only industry you can think of where that is not understood at all. It's
That's
it's commonly not even asked.
that's crazy to me because when I was working on Wall Street, back in the early 2000s, mutual fund companies would come in and they all
Mm-hmm.
got sanctioned for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'd come in, they'd give you a presentation, and they'd tell you what your commission was baked into the mutual
Yes.
fund,
Yeah.
whatever. But you also got bonuses, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got trips. You sold what was it? New York Life. Guess what? You're going on a cruise this week. You're going on this one, and they're all
Yeah.
baked in. That's not transparent in the healthcare world.
Not at all. Not at all.
Wow.
Not only that, so like I came from the same side. So I was a Series 65 RIA.
Hmm.
So that license requires a fiduciary standard of care, right? So I wasn't, I knew all those things existed. Like I watched other people in my office that were Series 6 and 7. This fund pays 4%. Somebody came in with a proprietary REIT or whatever, and that's paying
Hmm.
7. Suddenly that's in all of their clients' portfolios, right?
Yep.
And that at least on the security side, there is a licensing to be a fiduciary, so we can clear that up, right? So people can choose a fiduciary financial advisor and start to eliminate that conflict. In insurance, it's exactly the opposite. There's one license, 215, life and health. The actual term of the license is insurance producer. They're there to produce, sell, and that's it. So if you want that transparency, that fiduciary standard of care, you have to ask, you have to understand because it's not going to be brought to you.
That's interesting. So there's only one licensing requirement. Like I
Yes.
was a 763, 910, 24. I had my 65 also.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when it all changes once you get to 65 and you become a fiduciary,
Yeah.
right? I'm surprised there's no sub licensing or any other licensing. It's just the 215 in the insurance world. I actually had my 215 at one point in time. Not that I ever used it,
Yeah.
but
There really needs to be because it makes no sense. Like nowadays, most plan sponsors understand that for their 401k, they need a fiduciary advisor. Like that is now
Mhm.
commonplace. It
Okay.
was not when I was a securities advisor. That's something that really it got kicked off during the Obama years when he put out the fiduciary rule, right? And the industry started panicking that all financial advisors would have to be a fiduciary.
Mhm.
And that's around the time I was licensing, and everybody's panicking and freaking out. I'm like, what's the big deal, guys? Like, I'm studying, right? I'm going through this, and I was like, I don't understand it. Is that not what we're doing? Like, why is that difficult? Why is that scaring everybody? Why is everybody worried about their own revenue? So I kind of just kicked it off, went straight in that path, then saw health insurance, and I'm like, this is horrible. So what we've been doing since day one, and what is now finally picking up steam in the health and welfare space, is at least everybody knows what that term is. Some plan sponsors are starting to ask for it, but there is no state or licensing board that is going to enforce that upon insurance brokers.
Mhm.
The employer has to be the one to do it.
That's interesting. You know, insurance has, even though I was 215 licensed, right? There was always somebody when I owned the company, somebody in my company that handled it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All I really cared about, and a lot of audience members that are listening right now, right? Really what they care about is, how do I get the best benefits for my people and pay the least amount? That's all I care about. Are you
Yeah.
lowering my premium, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we were discussing earlier in the green room, the four different aspects of where the cost comes from,
Mm-hmm.
that's news to me. So I'd love if you can run that down for the audience right now so they can get a better understanding of it.
Yeah, another thing that kind of leads employers not to ask a lot of questions is their general assumption is that there's four carriers in pretty much any state in the country, and we call that the BUCAs, right? Stands for Blue Cross, United, Cigna, Aetna. And most employers' perception is, well, there's only four, so I'm just going to push this down on HR. HR, pick the least worst out of those four carriers. Broker, go show me those three or four carriers, right? And then it's simple, and then we're done, and we did all we can do, right? But that's not how things operate at all. Two things I'd like to kind of use to explain that. One is what we see on average is about 18 claims per insured employee per year, right? So you start thinking about how many employees you have on the plan. Every claim is an invoice coming into the healthcare plan, right? So that starts to put into perspective like how much invoices are coming into essentially your company, even if you're not seeing it, right? Like that's what's happening.
Donovan, I'm
And
sorry. Let me dig in deep there.
sure.
Each insured, the average is 18 claims per annum.
Yeah, so that sounds like a lot, right? You
It does
hear
sound
that,
like a
you're like,
lot.
well, I'm a guy, I don't use it at all. Maybe I've used it once in the past 5 years, right? But you might not, and then your coworker has his wife and his kids on, right?
Okay.
If the
Okay.
wife goes to the pharmacy for one monthly drug, that's 12 claims. She then takes her
Gotcha.
kids to primary specialist, urgent care,
I could
ER,
see
right?
how the money adds up for a carrier.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
that's
not per person, it's per employee,
per
right? So if you
employee.
have a family of 4 or 5,
Yeah.
on there, it gets real quick. I mean, even if you're just going twice a year, right?
Yeah.
You're there.
So now we kind of understand like the volume of what's coming in and like why we would need to pay attention to this, right? So when we're talking about what we can do differently besides just looking at those three or four carriers, we have to understand how a healthcare plan operates. So there's four moving parts basically in every single healthcare plan, whether it's talked about or not, whether you understand it, whether you've been brought different options. So first part is what they call the TPA. It's just a third party administrator. That's the administrator that's answering the phone for employee questions, paying the providers, issuing ID cards, just all the admin work. Second piece is the network. So this is what employees are actually going to say is their insurance, regardless of the rest of it, right? They're going to say, I am on this PPO, I am on this HMO. That's what they're
Can,
going to look
can you,
for.
can you backtrack there? Because I don't
Sure.
understand that. What's the difference between a PPO and what's the difference between an HMO?
So this has changed a lot over the years. HMOs are just typically more restrictive, so they're going to have tighter networks. So essentially, the insurance companies, and this has been a failed experiment, and HMOs are disappearing. It's very rare to see them anymore. But essentially, what the insurance company is trying to do is funnel more insured through a smaller network of doctors in an effort to pay the doctors less but give them more volume.
Okay.
Right. So now they get to go to a doctor and say, I have 10,000 insured within 3 miles of your office if you're on this HMO, and they only have 2 doctors to choose from in their vicinity or whatever. And they use that to try and push down, how much they're going to pay them. Hasn't worked. HMOs are disappearing. But what any network is, the important part of a network. So employees just think of it as, this is where I can go, this is where I cannot go, which is silly because obviously like nothing else that we buy or pay for works that way. You don't have to call Visa to see if you can go to a restaurant, right? Like they just want money. But what a network is it's a pre-agreed upon reimbursement for anything that person could get done. So that's the important part on the insurance side, right? So the network is what employees understand. It's what they're interacting with. But the bad side of it is what the employer is going to pay is predetermined. And that is something we get into a lot on the pricing, right? So in the state of Florida, we have the highest PPO reimbursement rates in the country, okay? On average, the PPO reimbursement is 347% of Medicare, meaning if somebody went in with Medicare to the same doctor, they're going to pay 100%, right? And the PPO equivalent would be 3.4 times.
What would create that variance from state to state?
Competition, what they need to offer, how those insurance companies are running in the state. They all run in each state kind of independently. So if you look at a company like Blue Cross, they have 33 different entities by state.
Okay.
So they're not balancing this out. It's much more targeted and local state by state. And the reason that's different is when an insurance company goes to negotiate with a hospital, let's say, they essentially have three pools of insured people within, any carrier. I'm not calling out anybody specific. United Healthcare, let's just say in this example. So United Healthcare has their Medicare Advantage population. Then they have their individual insured population, let's say on the healthcare exchange, healthcare.gov. And then the third bucket of insured that they have is their employer-sponsored healthcare plan. So when they're negotiating with a hospital, they're not setting that predetermined rate across all three buckets. Each one of those buckets is also going to have a different reimbursement rate for every procedure. And the reason for that is because when we're talking about employer-sponsored healthcare plan, over 70% of employers are self-funded. So that's why the employer market is always paying more than what you would pay if you went in there with a Medicare card. Because that claim is going to be put more on the employer than on the insurance company.
So with all these pre-negotiated contracts, why do I constantly hear, and we work with a lot of doctors, like they have to mark it up 3 times to get what they actually want from an insurance company?
Yeah, I mean, it's a typical like haggling game. It's pretty bored and tired. Like there's no truth to it.
It's like everybody knows this. Why are we even bothering? What can we save a step here? Can we just?
It's so silly, and that's another. That's
It
another.
doesn't make sense. Listen, if we pre-negotiated, look, every widget I sell you is $100. Why do I have to bill you $300 to get my 100?
Yeah.
Right.
No, you're not wrong. And the other thing and the funny thing about securities versus healthcare is that data is not provided to employers, right? So the employer often, until they surpass usually the 100 insured level in most states. Every carrier is different. Every state's different. It's constantly moving. But the level of claims accounting, so basically showing the employer, well, these are all your expenses and this is why it's going up. They don't have to provide that. They don't provide that, right? So that's the other side of this whole conversation is like, unlike securities, it's not a data-driven decision because fundamentally the people that need the data are not getting it.
This is way above my pay grade, Lou. Yeah, I'm gonna let you jump in here because it honestly just blows it doesn't make any sense. Why do we keep going down this path, right? Why can't we sell insurance across state lines? It blows my mind.
Yeah. So that's the network piece. So we talked about the administrator of the network. two of the functions of any healthcare plan. The other two is the pharmacy benefit manager. Obviously, this piece has gotten a ton of attention because they're setting one price for a drug at the pharmacy and then charging the employer a markup or a spread in the middle. And those are also wildly variable. They're not disclosed. They're not, the employer never gets to see that or understand that piece at all. And the pharmacy benefit manager is always owned by the insurance company. So they hire themselves internally, and then they get to set their own profit margins, all while never disclosing that back to the employer, like how they make money, how much money they make.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So right now, where we are, we're in 2026. Over the last few years, a lot of people that I know in my network and a lot of people I know around the world are getting more preventative, right? Rather than reactive when it comes to medicine. What are you seeing the insurers starting to provide that allows for more preventative care, right, than reactive care right now? Is there any big changes going on in them inside of these plans internally? Are there anything employees are asking for more?
Yeah. I'd say the insurance company's not much, because if you're talking about like the difference of like health optimization stuff, right? Like whether that's weight loss drugs or hormone replacement or, kind of all the pre-sick care stuff that people want to do, insurers are not picking any of that stuff up. What a lot of employers are doing is they're putting a piece in the middle called direct primary care. So it's essentially access to a physician today or tomorrow, right? Like that's how quick you can see these guys, instead of a typical PCP is like, it's usually 18 to 21 days before you can see your
Wow.
So like by the time you get to them, you're either recovered or dead, right? It's just, that's why people just run to urgent care instead. That also jacks costs up. So a lot of employers are putting in that direct primary care in the middle. And at those facilities, like we have it set up, they can get generic meds there. They can get blood work there. They can get stitches there. Like the services that they can receive at these direct primary care facilities are much greater than what you could do with a PCP. You're also not going to be in there for an average of 7 minutes. You'll have 30 minutes, an hour with a doctor, an hour and a half. They'll make house calls, right? One of my clients has 10 kids. The doctor just goes to his house, spends all day.
That's amazing. I haven't heard of that yet. I mean, I have a concierge doctor that I use. Lou, do you have one? Do you have a doctor for you and Tina? He'll come to my house if I want him to come to my house. I text him. He texts me back. I go to his office when I need to. It works out great. I mean, I pay cash for that extra, obviously. Yeah. But it makes a world of a difference. And for a business owner, it saves time, right?
Yeah, it does. So we can build that stuff into a healthcare plan. And that's part of kind of getting away from those 4 options and just looking at this from a claims perspective and then figuring out what's going to work and then what's going to be the ROI on a program like that. Because what we see when we install something like a direct primary care is typically ER visits decrease anywhere from like 25 to 35% in that first year, like immediately, because now people aren't going straight to the ER. They didn't wait until they were about to have a heart attack, right? Like they know they can just get in there. They're not paying the copay to go to the direct primary care. They can do it today or tomorrow. They can have enough time to go through their conditions and situation. So those are the kinds of programs that are available once you start, kind of getting out of those, just the main 4 carriers.
I was that guy, so you guys can blame me for all your healthcare costs. When I was in my 20s and 30s, I had healthcare coverage, but I didn't have a primary doctor. Never went to the doctor. Anytime something was wrong, hospital was across the street. I went to the ER.
Yep.
Every
Obviously,
single time.
that's super expensive, and that's when, like I said, that data and transparency doesn't exist for a lot of people. And at the end of the day, like the only way any healthcare plan is going to lower costs for the employer is if it first lowers costs and works better for the employees. So that's the interesting kind of paradigm change, because so many employers think, if I want to keep my healthcare costs low, I have to make the plan worse for the employees. But the truth is when you come at this from a data perspective, if you put stuff in place that saves the employees money, and it's a better negotiated contract and they have better access and better quality, they will do those things and avoid the high cost things like just running into an ER. Because the bigger the building, the bigger the bill every single time.
I mean,
whether we're talking about like a CT or, stitches or whatever, you want to stay out of hospitals, and you have to give them low cost options that they understand and make it easy.
Listen, with the job market where it is right now, attracting talent is really hard for everybody, right? And benefit packages are a big deal. You know,
Mhm.
it used to be that people would want free snacks, gym memberships, ping pong tables. But I heard now, and there's been a study out there that these Gen Zers, Lou, you're going to love this one. They want Ozempic in their benefit packages.
Yeah, yeah.
How can you include that in a benefit package?
It's expensive. It's a problem, and there's still new and different ways to deal with it. Most companies have excluded it for weight loss. Um,
Okay.
some employers still are, and then there are solutions where you can get it at a lower cost if you make it part of your plan. So like Costco just rolled out basically $150 to $200 a month for Novo, which is Ozempic and Manjaro or Wegovy. I don't know. Anyway,
Okay.
Is this for their employees?
What's that?
Is this for their employees
Yeah, for the employees. So we can
who
roll out
also
programs.
who also happen to get unlimited hot dogs? It's a
And they'll leave the
win-win.
hot dog in.
How do you resign yourself to those two?
It's a win-win. Well, you
So
know what? I think the prices of those drugs are going to go down drastically. Those drugs were already being sold. I mean, Trump was famous for going out there and saying, look, the fat shot over here. When he's in Europe, it was like a quarter of the price of what it is over here in the US. But Eli Lilly is going to be getting approval for retatrutide,
yeah,
right? So they've already knocked down the price. I think it was Manjaro, which is trizepatide. They've
mhm,
knocked down the price a lot, right? And it's going to keep going lower because they're not going to knock down the price of retatrutide because it's supposed to be 3 times better than all these
yeah.
other things that are on the market right now.
Yeah, it'll come down because plan sponsors are excluding it because the costs are getting high. It's easy in the companies, that left it on for weight loss. It started becoming 10% plus of total plan costs for
Wow.
voluntary weight loss drug that people are not going to come off of, right? So as employers started to exclude it, we're starting to see options like this Costco program that rolled out like 2 weeks ago, where typically, like if I see that drug come through on a pharmacy, claims report, and they just went to, Walgreens, it's going to be like $1,100 to $1,300 a month, right? And now Costco's rolling out this $150 to $200 a month direct program. So like, what we'll do is that's what we do with the data access is we say, employee, you can go get it at Walgreens and you're going to pay deductible until you hit your max out of pocket, or you can go get it at Costco at no cost, right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a win-win, right? The company is going to save so much money that not collecting that $50 copay is not going to matter, right? So we're just trying to set good employee behaviors, but it has to make sense for them. It has to work. And if you don't have access to that data, and you're also in a plan structure where you can't make any changes, then you're really lost. You can't even kind of get started, right? Because when we're talking about those bukas, they basically sell you a closed box. Here's your closed box. These are the insurance coverages. Don't ask me for your claims. Don't ask me to change anything. Like this is it, right? So that's what we get people away from, and just kind of put in common sense programs. Like the drug program is one. We'll often source drugs internationally from Canada. That's a great program. We'll do direct contracts for advanced imaging like MRIs at like freestanding facilities instead of hospitals. I've seen plans be charged as much as $17,000 for an MRI, and I've paid as low as $350 for an MRI, right? Same machine,
All right.
same
So,
image, just where they got it done.
Lou, I went to go get an MRI. This happened to me 6 months ago at the hospital. They said it was going to cost me $2,500. I didn't do it. I
Yeah.
walked out. I called my friend who had an MRI center. I got it done for $350 cash.
Yep. Yep. All day. So that's
If
something
that is not insane,
Mhm.
I don't know what is. And by the way, I waited 3 weeks or 4 weeks to get that MRI appointment at the hospital.
Yep.
So think about what we're saying during this podcast, and this is why I love Ethos Benefits and what Donovan and his team are doing. When there's a problem in an industry, there's two solutions. either bureaucracy and the legal regime finds a solution, or the market solves itself. And what Donovan is doing is he's solving this problem for small business owners. So Donovan, thank you so much for giving us these insights. You don't know what you don't know. So we really appreciate it. Where can all the small business owners that are listening find you and Ethos Benefits and learn even more?
Yeah, I'd say ethosbenefits.com. If you go to our website, we actually produce 2 documentaries. They're great watches. They're about 60 minutes. It's not us. We're not in it. It's, plan sponsors, attorneys, insurance execs, providers, physicians, nurses, right? Kind of explaining all sides of the employer healthcare problem, illustrating, conflicts and problems and also a path out of it. So one is called It's Not Personal, It's Just Healthcare. That would be where I would start, is watching that, because it goes through all parts of the healthcare plan. And then last year we did a secondary documentary called Side Effects May Include, and that is specifically about the pharmacy benefit manager industry. So that one is a little bit more technical, but that is a huge problem right now. And it's also the easiest to resolve on any healthcare plan. And we can easily lower costs, like on a total, claim spend 10 to 25% just by swapping out the pharmacy benefit manager, not asking employees to do anything different or, turn down drugs or anything like that. So those 2 are great resources.
Donovan, thank you so much for being here. Before we let you run, I got one more question. So, which of the big 4 do you have?
Which of the big 4 do I have? Mm-hmm. I hate it. I can't say one of them. So my company is not yet at the size where I can offer the solutions I offer the client. My clients, because we have about 14 employees. I'm dying to get to the point where we can do our work in our own healthcare plan. Okay. But they're all the same. I mean, they all do what they're supposed to do, and they all increase, and they all have their own problems. Fundamentally, that's the problem with all of them. Because when a broker shows you a spreadsheet with a different one, and it may be a little bit less for the upcoming year, they're not actually changing any of the processes that are happening internally. So there's no solution to the problem that got you to this place for the following year, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Donovan, thank you so much. Everybody, that's a wrap of the Liquid Lunch Project. We'll catch you on the next episode.